Goodall, apparently. Featuring a couple of Goodall guitars today. First of all, the Friday Noontime webcast from Lafayette, California. Mighty fine guitar, Stevie Coyle here, assisted ably by Miss Valerie May on the camera and microphone. We got a picture and everything? Look at that. How about that? Good heavens. What happened? This used to be brown. Every time I see myself, I think, who the hell is that aqua long looking guy there? The Goodall, it's a Brazilian grand concert cutaway. So it's got lots of letters and numbers. The top is beautiful Adirondack spruce. Back and sides are really beautiful Brazilian rosewood. And let me show you a little bit of the rosewood there. How about that? Have I got too much reflection there, Valerie? Is it good? Thank you very much. With our new flying camera floating around. Looking lovely. And here's the front, just while we're kind of in that mode. There's the Adirondack top. Nice wide grain. It's not that pound cake narrow grain that we all thought we wanted back in the 70s. This is that lovely, stiff, wide Adirondack Eastern spruce that's so stiff you can make it really thin, which makes it really resonant. And this is one of those guitars that's very modern in a certain sense, in that it rings a ton. All guitars are known for resonance, big, big resonance. And this certainly has that. Lots of ring, lots of overtones, lots of sustain. Man, the cool thing about a guitar like this is that it is kind of full out, even played softly. And you can play back from that, which for most of us, when you're playing more softly, you play better typically because you're not worried about muscling every last bit of sound out of the guitar. If the guitar has it already, you can play back from that a little bit, and this guitar does that. Wonderful, I'm guessing, for alternate tunings as well. I'm going to try a little detuning. Yeah. Not sure if Rick Ruskin is tuned in, but that was a Rick Ruskin tune called Microphone Fever. This guitar handles big open tunings really, really well. Trying to find one rule. I always tell students, and I try and do it myself, I sometimes forget, that it's always better to tune up to a note than down to a note. If you're tuning down, the string can continue stretching past the point where you've stopped. It can go lower than you've asked it to go low. Whereas if you're tuning up to a note, it's not going to get tighter on you. So tune up to a note when you can and when you remember and when you want it to really be in tune. That's pretty good. Just wonderful, really wonderful. Tons of punch as well. It's not all ring. Rose guitars typically have a reputation for being ringy and resonant and lots of overtones and lots of sustain. This guitar has that. But this guitar has punch as well. It'll kind of cut through if you're playing in a group sort of situation. Real punchy and real loud. Well, I've got other guitars to show you today, believe it or not. I could play this one all day. On sale, as is the next guitar I'm going to show you, also Goodall, from the same owner, our motivated seller. And this one is a Dreadnought. This one is the letters, THRD. It's a traditional herringbone redwood Dreadnought, THRD. Gorgeous, again, with Adirondack spruce on the top, Amazon rosewood back and sides. Quite fantastic. A pleasure to play. Big, big guitar. Really big. And probably best played with a flat pick. So I'll see if I can find one of those here. I'm sure in this fingerstyle shop there's a few of those lying around. Here's one. Yeah. Already in a non-standard tuning. Double D. Let's try it in standard, see what happens. Big, big, big. Bluegrassers, this is a bluegrassy guitar for sure. Equipped with a Fishman pickup system, microphone and pickup, mixed on the guitar, run out to a single point on your amplifier or PA system. These are light gauge strings too. Some of you bluegrassers and alternate tunings players and people that are just still real muscular with your guitar, which is totally cool, you might want to try a set of mediums on here. Would be even louder and brighter and bigger altogether, but it's immense as it is. This guitar started off at $5,200, went to $4,900, then it went to $3,900, now it's $3,500, $3,500 for an Amazon and Adirondack Dreadnought from Goodall. Come and get it, kids. Ducky, are there any questions or comments so far?
No, I mean, the connection's been a little spotty.
Spotty connection? Sorry about the spotty connection, kids. We're at the mercy of the ones and zeros out there. Well, let's move on before I tune that up anymore. Pressing on to another couple of guitars that came into the shop completely apart from each other, but similar in that they're both Martin Retro Series guitars, both OMs. And in fact, Valerie, would you mind getting a quick shot of that wall there? Just kind of pan the wall real quick. That wall, kids, is all OMs. I was taking pictures in here the other day, and I thought, good heavens, I've got a lot of OMs, and I put them all together on the same wall instead of being kind of scattered around the shop, with the exception of that 12-string on the bottom row there. All OM-sized guitars. Astonishing. I didn't realize I had however many of those are. 5, 10, 16, 17, 18 OM guitars. Pretty amazing. And all kinds of great stuff up there. DeLapp, Yamamoto, Franklin, Collings, Martin, of course. I've got a beautiful old Martin from 19, a triple O. Triple O and OM are essentially the same body size, different neck widths and scale lengths, but essentially the same size guitar. Got Micheletti up there, and Corcoran, and Perlman, of course, Peter Rodman. Quite a selection of really fine luthiers, and this is the golden age, folks. This is the golden age of guitar building. There's never been anything like what's being built nowadays. The quality and construction and materials, unrivaled these days. Now, a lot of these newer guitars won't sound like old guitars, although both of the guitars I'm going to show you today have torrefied tops. The two Martins that came in, completely independent from each other, have torrefied tops, which means they've gone through a process which involves heat and vacuum, which essentially kind of sucks the moisture right out of them and cooks the tops to a point where they're sort of simulating the age that gets on an old guitar after years and years of play. So the combination of age and play really does improve the sound of the guitar. And this torrefaction process involves vacuum and moisture reduction. So they sound older than they should, and they really work. I've only played a few torrefied guitars in my time, but it's a true fact. They really do sound older than they ought to. So first off, this is a Martin. This is the 1931 OM. This is like they built them in 1931, which is to say, excuse me, on both of these guitars, probably fatter necks than a lot of folks are accustomed to, because way back then they didn't have truss rods to mess with, and so they made the necks thicker and heavier to resist twisting and pulling more. So as you move up the neck, both of these guitars have a slightly wider and deeper feel to them than you're perhaps accustomed to on more modern guitars, but that's part of the retro charm of these things. And even as a thumb over guy, I can wrap around and get my bass notes with my thumb no problem on both of these Martin OM vintage model guitars. Martin, if there ever was one. Good heavens. Just, it has that thing that happens in the low mid-range, this kind of cool saturation in the low mid-range. So hard to talk about sound, as you know. You've heard me complain about this over and over. Stephen Hawking, in trying to describe particle physics to people that have no mathematics, he complained every other page in his book, A Brief History of Time, that this is kind of ridiculous. I can't really explain without you knowing the math. And unless it's really hard to talk about the sound that Martin guitars have, but there's something in there in the low mid-range that saturates real nicely. So that's got this kind of thickness, and I hate to use the term warmth, because as much as it means good to everybody, what the hell does warmth mean? Does it mean sparkly? In some people's ears it means sparkly. Other people, no, it's the warm fuzzy stuff in the middle. And that's where I said, other people think of that as being a guitar where the high end is really attenuated, where it's mellow. I think of the warmth in Martin terms as being that low mid-range saturation, the kind of thickness there, but without sacrificing boom in the bass and trebly trebles, really a lot of sibilant action happening up in the trebles. It's sort of that part of the orchestra, kind of the mid-range of your orchestra is really working hard and supporting and providing lots of cool fuzziness is a pejorative term, but that kind of saturation where all those notes are blending together nicely. But the trebles, the trumpets up high, still got plenty of room to be trumpety. The bass down here, you've got lots of great tuba action going on down there. And that's the Martin sound, I think. If I had to put it in words, and that's just barely in words, I realize. A bit of a V neck in back here. Not a whole lot of V, and you never pick this up on the camera, but perhaps you can see a bit of the thickness of it there, the depth of the neck. It's a little deeper than you might find on a nice wide finger, 1 3/4 on the wide side of 1 3/4 actually, coming up the neck, the nut there, at the nut rather, and up high here, really comfortable. Sits in my palm really nicely. But like I say, I'm a thumb over guy, and I'm using my thumb for all kinds of stuff. No prob. I don't have big hands. People think I have big hands. I don't have that. Hands are not. Nice loud guitar too. Activates really quickly. You don't have to hit it too hard before you get up to the threshold where it kind of does what it needs to do. Here's one of the OMs, the retro models that we have here. This is the 1931 OM retro model. Slight differences in how they were built in 1933 apparently, because the next guitar, which is a gorgeous thing I must say, with a sunburst top on it. This is the 1933. This one is a mahogany backed guitar though, so presumably, with any luck, we'll be able to hear the difference between a rosewood guitar and a mahogany guitar. We'll see. Yes, punchier, which is to say more immediate attack, but not quite as long a ring or sustain after it. Not quite as complex in the overtones department. A punchy guitar, a great rhythm guitar. Wow. And the OM size, the OM triple O size, I'm with Eric Schoenberg completely on this. His claim is that this is the kind of do-it-all size, and I agree completely. The OM was for the longest time the forgotten guitar, because back in the 60s and through the 70s, we were all playing nothing but dreadnoughts. If it wasn't a dreadnought, it wasn't a guitar. Sometimes it wasn't a Martin or a Gibson or a Guild. That was kind of the triumph guitar, and if it wasn't a dreadnought, it sure as heck wasn't a guitar. All the rest were lady guitars, with those Joan Baez guitars. You know, Dylan played one, but yeah. This one will take a little tuning. I never did get to tuning this one. Suddenly dry, things are all kind of excuse me, sharping out a bit here. Tune along with me, kids. Everybody sing. Kind of in there, more like that. I suppose you could say, in very, very broad strokes, that this guitar would be more suitable in most people's ears, in most guitarists' ears, for a blues player. Not the big ringy stuff, but the punchy stuff. A lot of those guitars you heard on the old blues records were mahogany guitars, mahogany backed guitars, spruce tops, chances are, but mahogany back and sides because of that simpler overtone stack and the more punchy, get out there quick, not a lot of sustain, really quick attack, but a really quick decay as well, comparatively. Depends on how you play it. You can make them ring if you let them ring. But this doesn't have credit because it does what a mahogany guitar should do. This doesn't do what the rosewood guitar does, in that it just the rosewood guitar will grab those frequencies and circulate them around each other. They're all kind of swirling around each other and each other and carrying, and that's where the sustain comes from. Is from all those overtones, kind of celluloid binding, and a little bit fancier, hence the higher number. But both OMs, you can tell an OM and a triple O are the same body size. The OM typically has the wider fingerboard and the longer scale, and the triple O has the narrower fingerboard and the shorter scale. But the way you can tell at a distance, for the most part, is this is a triple O. This is, well, it says OM inside. Now this is what happened with Martin in the 30s, all right? Yeah, they're calling this an OM. But it has what is nowadays considered a triple O pickguard. This one's got the classic OM pickguard. And I'll have to consult my books to get exactly straight on when things changed around, when things got codified. Because this is fairly early in the Martin zone of building OM and triple O guitars. Guitars were getting bigger at this point. Guitars had been really small for the longest time. What we consider parlor guitars today, which in comparison to what we play today, as even some people would consider these small guitars or parlor guitars. Parlor guitars technically have to be, again in Martin lingo, have to be either a size 1 or size 2, which is 2 or 3 sizes down from these. These are big guitars, which is why they're totally useful for just about any kind of music, because they're big enough to give you lots of boom and bass, but they're much more comfortable for most of us to play than a dreadnought, which is really wide across the waist and your arm sits up really high and has a really skinny neck, which some folks really like. I like a little real estate over there myself. So just want to show you those guitars today. Just 4 guitars. We got 2 Goodalls, 2 Martins. I'll post the prices of all these things down below. And these are all fantastic guitars. The Goodalls in particular, though, are on sale, on big sale, and I'm guessing at these prices they won't last long. So first come, first served, kids. You know how it goes here at Mighty Fine Guitars. Next week, I'm going to be featuring the Michael Lewis Jazz Archtop, if it's still here, that came in, which is astonishing, but deserves a whole segment unto itself, and perhaps another couple of archtop guitars. I'm starting to feature more of those. There are more archtops coming in. They're acoustic guitars as well as electric, so they qualify here at Mighty Fine, where we're very snobby about sticking with strictly acoustic. But acoustic electric is fine too. And the Michael Lewis that came in, the Ruby guitar, is really quite an astonishment. So tune in next week at noon-ish here on this channel, or I always pop these things over fairly swiftly to the Mighty Fine Guitars timeline as well. So one place or the other. Were there any questions that need answering this week? We're all set? Okay, good. Off we go. Down the road, folks. If you do have any questions about anything that was played today, type them up, put them in the comments below, and I'll get back to you as quick as I can. Once again, Stevie Coyle signing off from Mighty Fine Guitars in Lafayette. So long, y'all.